usually do, where I'm like, "Are we ready?"
Yeah, are we ever?
Let's see.
I'm worried that we've got a large attendee contingent from the other side of the Atlantic.
Late night. It's like late night over there.
It's 1:00 in the morning, and Ian Kilkenny, who we've spoken to about a couple of his questions in the past, he was the one asking about doing the transcons and should he do, going up to Seattle, and we gave him some advice on that. He's on. Hey, Ian. And Michael Traeger's in from Brighton. He apparently took a great nap this afternoon, so we got that going for us.
I'm jealous.
Oh, man. All right. So I guess we should get started then, gentlemen.
Do we have to?
We don't want to keep them up too late. I mean, yeah. So welcome to episode 300 of Dots, Lines, and Destinations, the live show.
Yes.
The usual cast of characters: Foz Mahmood, Seth Miller. Gentlemen,
do we have to clarify the 300 number?
I mean, there's an asterisk, but it's not really an asterisk.
I'm just saying we're not good at counting.
No, we're not.
Ish. I mean, it's not like we purposefully went out of our way to get the number wrong. But,
True.
Ed pointed out that we had him on for episode 200, which what seems like way less than 2 years ago, which is what it should have been. But, it was definitely not episode 200. So, I'm just...
And
maybe he's our auditing crew. Maybe we should have asked him.
Is he an accountant? I mean, that would be useful.
He does do a lot of number crunching and money. Oh, Hendrik is on. He's clearly our latest attendee until we get someone further east into Central Asia.
Yeah, Hendrik
we got Germany represented now. Yeah.
Oh man. So let's just. I mean, I think one of the things I kind of wanted to talk about before, or maybe we'll save it. Let's just talk about some news first, and then I want to talk about y'all's some moments in Dots, Lines, and Destinations history. So first of all, Qantas is cutting off international flights until March of 2021.
Yep.
Seems...
They also had to cut a bunch of domestic flights because 2 of the Australian states had to go back on lockdown.
Oh, because of outbreaks of coronavirus? Wow. Okay.
And they were trying to keep, I think, New Zealand open, but New Zealand wanted nothing to do with that, right? They're the one country that seems to have really, really kept it at zero.
So what is New Zealand saying? Just don't fly here? And that's it? Or...
There was a whole... Because remember, there's sort of common economy situation where people can work trans-border or trans-Tasman. There was sort of an evacuation situation again. Repatriation, depending on which word you feel is more appropriate, but trying to come up with, can we get these people home? And then do we have to quarantine them when they get back? Yes. Things like that. But New Zealand declared itself virus free. They're, we're not laughing, crying mostly about how US are trying to get sports running again. New Zealand is doing all-star games in their basketball league and running with having a great time with it. And we're completely screwed.
I mean, what does this mean? So for Qantas, waiting until 2021 to resume international flights, I mean, that's a big chunk of their business. Yeah. Things don't look good for them, right? Financially.
Does it really look good for any airline in the next 18 months?
Yeah. We'll get to that later.
The one thing I will say about us, just Australia in general, is, they were limiting inbound flights to only 450 passengers per airport because that was the number of tests they felt they could run per day. And so and then because of that, they had to limit it to 50 per aircraft. And so United suddenly was told you can fly to Sydney. You can only bring 50 people.
Seems economical.
Yeah. Great idea. Real smart. Yeah, it's bad. And so how much longer those will last, who knows? But at this point, it was either cargo or repatriation flights were the things that actually made money. And who the hell knows how that's going to play out now.
So, I mean, Virgin Australia, who's in worse, Foz's favorite airline, was in worse shape. Are they in the same boat as Qantas because of this?
Worse, Foz?
I wonder what's going to happen with their funding package.
Because now they can't fly.
Well, now their timeline's extended even more. Right. And I don't think it was finalized, right? So there were people contesting the existing, I forget who was buying it, but someone was contesting it. And so it wasn't finalized yet. So on the heels of Qantas saying they're going to not fly till March 2021, that extends it even more.
Yes, Cyrus, I believe, Cyrus won the sort of auction for the bidding for them, and the bondholders were going to put back a counteroffer. Thank you, Hendrik, for pointing out that Alitalia is in fact burning less money than before. Yeah, but they're trying to leave SkyTeam too, so winning. And South African Airways won't die. Their debtors seem to have approved the quote unquote bailout plan, which we talked about a couple of weeks ago, which is like $500 million just to pay off the old debt before they have to deal with the new debt and recapitalizing. So,
I mean, when you think about all this, right? I mean, this is affecting every airline across the globe. Who is someone who stands out to you that's doing okay, if anyone?
Eastern?
I actually want to check. They launched service this week, Miami to Guayaquil. They got approval. It was last week. They launched it on the 7th, I think, or the 8th, whatever that. It was the 8th, whatever that Tuesday was. They got approval from the DOT, and they actually launched it. And they asked me if I tweeted about it, and they asked me if I was going to join them for the inaugural.
And you didn't?
Well, they expected me to buy my ticket. And also, no. I very politely responded that there happens to be a pandemic going on right now, and maybe discretionary random travel to Ecuador was a bad idea. But
sadly.
Yeah, I actually really enjoyed Ecuador, and Guayaquil is a great jumping off place if you're going to get out to the Galapagos. That's where you got to start from.
Yeah. So El Al, what is the drama going on here? They've had some funding issues of their own, or financial stability issues, I should say, of their own, and there's some interesting things going on.
They have no money. They stopped paying their pilots. The pilots stopped flying flights. Is the short version. The pilots were still running some of the cargo operations, so they were making a little bit of money. And then they decided to stop doing that. And there was also a lawsuit filed because Israeli law requires refunds within 21 days. And they did not meet that at all. And they apparently owed something like $400 million in back fares from canceled flights.
Wow.
Which across the industry, right? IATA said it's in the billions globally, right? That's why they wanted vouchers instead of refunds. And so it's bad. It's really bad. But apparently the Knesset, which is the Israeli parliament, passed a law saying they get 90 days now, which buys them some time against this $400 million debt. But they've got to come up with a way to fund that. They've got to come up with a way to get back into business and have revenue. The borders are still mostly closed. It's like everything else in the world, bad, or in the industry, certainly.
And there was a bit of a clickbait headline out there that a young person, 21-year-old, had put in an offer to buy El Al. It's a little bit clickbaity, and the reason it's clickbaity is, as Foz pointed out, it's actually he's buying it in his father's stead because his father is not an Israeli citizen, which is required to own an Israeli company, correct?
Correct, and his son is an Israeli citizen.
And so the thing about that is most countries have if you own an airline here, you have to be a local law, right? It's foreign ownership rules, protectionism is the best of things, right? But what's interesting about that to me is you have to sign a sworn affidavit in whatever country saying I have control and I am a citizen of this country. And I've read a lot of these filings lately for the DOT, and for this kid to basically be saying, no, it's my money, I have control, when it's clearly his father pulling the strings. All right, I mean, putting aside the part where their prime minister is currently under indictment and is probably going to have to go to court and still get off on the charges, which, to be fair, we just did that 5-6 months ago also. It doesn't seem like the best way to approach business by starting off lying and making it clear.
Yeah, making it obvious.
Yeah, you want to be subtle, I feel like.
But if it's the only viable offer, what do you do?
Nationalize it. You're going to do that, if you're right. If you're going to have to end up absorbing the costs anyways, why not?
Do you think that's the eventual end of El Al, is nationalization of the airline?
I think that's the eventual end of most airlines at this point, or liquidation.
So what's the national carrier in the United States? This I want to know.
American Airlines will claim it's them. They did when they changed their tail to be the flag. I explicitly asked them, "Are you trying to pretend that you're the flag carrier for the country and like represent the United States?" And absolutely yes. That was part of the decision to put the flag on the tail from the eagle. You're just going to fuel the conspiracy theories that American Airlines is behind this whole thing. Behind what whole thing? COVID. That's one of the theories?
That's But, going back to the refunds thing, I have to wonder if after all this, the credit card companies are going to hold funds much longer from airlines, like they do normally with retailers.
It's a big risk, and we've talked about this before as other airlines have failed over the years. Credit card holdbacks, right? I love the movie Sneakers for a lot of reasons. And there's a scene in it where it's like, posit, banks are losing, banks are seen as unstable. Outcome, there's a run on the banks. Reality, the banks are unstable, right? The challenge is when the airlines seem weak, the credit card companies increase their holdbacks, and then the airlines are weak because they don't have the cash flow they need. And this is a massive cash flow challenge. The whole COVID situation is a cash flow challenge for the airlines, right? They were expecting to have all their income for the summer that they used to fund their winter operations. So, especially the LCCs, but like a lot of them have that problem. It's like, I'm going to say this a lot tonight. It's bad. Yeah. I will say though, Virgin Atlantic got their 1.2 billion pound deal set up, so called $1.5 billion, and a big part of that was an agreement from the credit card companies not to increase holdbacks. So there's that.
But you have to wonder what they got in return.
Fair. I mean, generally speaking, it depends on a lot of things, right? With the co-brand credit cards, often there are beneficial terms agreed to. Right. So like United and Chase may give you a smaller discount rate, take less of the cut if they use a Chase card as part of that relationship. Also turns out that the banks often on the co-brand cards will pay the airline part of the interest charges. That's something that gets negotiated. So that like 18% that you're paying when you carry a charge, which of course none of us do because we're smart about using credit cards, but those are the people that are paying for us to have these great credit cards. The airlines take some of that money now. On the better deals, they get some of the interest. Interesting, interesting. Well done, Stephen.
But Virgin doesn't have a huge co-brand credit card.
No, so nothing outside the U.S. has a huge co-brand. There's a few, but not nearly as much.
So you have to wonder if the credit card companies got some of the planes, because either that or asset slots.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. Could they demand, that as collateral?
We can't imagine the credit card companies would willingly just give something up.
No, but also absolutely not. But they also they make a lot of money from those transactions. They kind of do benefit from having these companies in business.
They do, but
what's the risk?
Yeah. In airlines, there's always going to be someone to fill the void. It's just a matter of time.
There's always someone else who thinks that being a billionaire is way too cool, so maybe I should be a millionaire and start an airline.
Exactly.
I mean, so going back to El Al then, if they get nationalized, what happens with this potential new ownership? I mean, is it just going to fall through? Does this guy really have the cash to back the airline and keep them afloat? Or is it just is he just puffing it up? Yeah, it's kind of how I feel about it. Just reading into it, it seems like it may be fake.
Yeah, I'm not sure about fake, but I don't think it goes through. I would say. The
question I would pose is, why would anyone buy an airline today in the states they're in with the labor agreements they have? Right?
You just wait until September or October when all of their layoffs happen, and then you buy an airline up.
Well, that's only in the U.S. Most of the rest of them are either done or not, but it's the deals are done. There's no one else that's got long-term money coming in at this point. Yeah. I mean, Europe had a few, but it's not El Al unless they make a new move, right? That's up to the government there. But to your point, Stephen, I think it's probably an option between nationalized or this / another investment. And I don't know who the other money would be at this point. they're all distressed assets right now. So should someone show up and buy? Yes. Who is it? I don't know.
Yeah. Airbnb wants guests to donate to hosts. I have many thoughts on this, but I'll let you guys go first.
Are you fucking kidding me?
It's about my consensus.
We're allowed one before it becomes R-rated, right?
I think so. Well, we're demonetized, so it doesn't matter.
That's true. Yeah, no, it is kind of amazing that they have added this feature. I've backed out on a few Airbnbs over the years. I've backed out on Airbnbs over the years a couple times, including one we had a week-long booking in Hamburg for AIX in April before it all fell apart. I feel badly for the hosts, but also not that I'm going to give them money. When I show back up, I'm absolutely going to go back to the people that I had to cancel on and try to stay with them and give them the money I planned on giving them anyways.
Yeah.
But who the hell do they think they are suggesting that I should be donating money? And the way it's phrased is also super sketchy. Keep in touch with your favorite hosts. And oh, by the way, you can also send them money too. Yeah. I don't know. Maybe I have been a repeat guest at one Airbnb again in Hamburg. But then he got out of the business, so we had to find a new place this time. But I don't know how many repeat customers there really are. Is that a thing?
So are they asking you to donate through them so they can take a cut of it? Okay.
Absolutely.
So it's really helping them stay afloat at the same time.
Yeah.
I also think they realize that there's there's a need for keeping their hosts from going bankrupt or having to sell their properties or losing their properties to foreclosure. I mean, there's some reality to that.
There is, but that's the problem they've created because they've convinced people to overextend themselves.
I won't. That's my thought on it. I mean, I've read a lot of hot takes, I will say, from people who, have lived in cities, San Francisco, Los Angeles, where there's a huge number of Airbnbs, and that has caused an increase in rents and mortgage payments and things where it's too expensive to afford to live there. And Airbnb has created that problem, and now Airbnb is trying to save that problem.
Yeah, I mean, as someone who used to have a vacation rental, you had to budget for a couple months of emptiness, right? And I don't think most of these people are, and they didn't know what they were getting themselves into. And
we're now into month 5 of this?
Month 5. Like you mentioned San Francisco. San Francisco has seen a 13 or 14% decline in rents in 3 months.
This is March. This is 5th March. So yeah.
Yeah.
5th March.
5th March.
It's so depressing.
It's the Ides of 5th March. So there's a whole thing going on there. Very Shakespearean. No, listen, I'm torn on the Airbnb thing because I use it a lot. It makes my travels more affordable. I actually like staying in a home or an apartment or a flat, if you will. Is that a Continental Meatball mug you're drinking out of?
Yes.
Is it purple?
It's faded because it's been through the dishwasher.
Oh, it's an ex-con mug. Very
even
nice.
better.
It was the old red meatball. Awesome. I've got my Cubana glass. Someone was asking about that. Eric, yeah. Havana Club 7 and Cubana glass. But anyway, Airbnb. Yeah, I like them. I also recognize the shit show it creates for rental markets. I used to live in New York City, and we had to fight with people who are renting out their apartments in our building.
Yeah.
And it was a co-op, and it was, not permitted by the rules. It was not permitted by New York state law. And we actually had a problem because Airbnb wouldn't let them delete the listing. You could black out all the dates, but you couldn't remove the listing because they wanted to show that they had more listings available, even if they weren't bookable. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't in our building, but I overheard a conversation from someone when I was on my way to Zork Fest in Atlantic City when that started in the line at Port Authority. And the woman behind me in line was fighting with Airbnb on the phone, trying to get it removed because she was going to get evicted from her building. Wow. Because they were fighting with her because she was listed on Airbnb. Yeah, awkward.
Yeah.
But to your point, right? These properties have always existed, right? There have been other sites. The problem is Airbnb has brought it to the mainstream. Bringing it to the mainstream has pulled in a whole nother set of clientele. And that was one of the things that I noticed is as Airbnb came on, the quality of the clientele deteriorated drastically. And that's one of the reasons why I got out of it.
I mean, it's kind of like what when Uber first came out in New York City. Uber was like, it was like all black car drivers. It's like they knew their way around where they were going. And then, a year into it, you've got some guy who just got a TLC.
Yeah, he got his TLC license. He barely passed the test, doesn't know where anything is because he can just use the app for navigation.
Yeah.
And he's got the car that he leased from Uber to drive, right? It's the same black Camry as it's the same black Camry as everybody else uses.
And it's beat to hell.
Well, and he just came into New York 2 weeks ago.
Yeah. No, listen, it's a problem. I get it, but also I'm part of the problem. It makes travel more affordable. And part of it's the money. Part of it is honestly, though, like where you can get a place to stay. There's a lot of cities where downtown or neighborhood type hotels or lodging is either way too expensive or almost non-existent. And it opens up neighborhoods. It opens up places that I like to stay. So I'm torn on the situation. Now I live in New Hampshire. I don't have to worry about the Manhattan apartments. So I'm much more in favor of it and exploiting people. But
so would you rent out your house on Airbnb in New Hampshire
if we were leaving for a long enough time? No. But I don't need to, I think is the answer, right? Like I moved to New Hampshire because the cost of living here is way lower. We considered doing it in New York as a rental when we would go on longer trips and actually sort of like more towards right. This was more towards the original theory of what Airbnb was, which is like just someone trying to make a few extra bucks on the side in a spare room, not someone running an illegal apartment empire or hotel empire with 50 properties around the city. Yep. In the end, we would find friends. We were more in the house swapping thing. We had friends who we knew were going to be in the neighborhood or were coming to New York and we were going to be gone. FedEx them a set of keys and let that happen. So. But yeah, we have done that, but I have trust issues. I trust me. I don't trust a lot of other people.
And see, I'm weirded out by staying in someone else's house. Like that's just,
I usually leave it cleaner than I found it. Right. Like
well, that's the problem. I'm going to show up and be like, this is gross.
I'm not to the point where like I need to show with my own set of, bleach wipes or whatever for the bathroom, but most hotels are disgusting like that too. But like, I sleep on my side of the bed. I put them together. If they tell me to strip the sheets off, I strip the sheets off. I take the trash out when I leave because there's a garbage can downstairs on the way out. Like part of that is like, I feel like it was my New York City apartment living. I'm just so used to like on the way out, you take the trash out and the can is down there on the way. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's like around the corner or behind a fence or something. It's a little harder, but I don't know. The hard part for me was always if you run into anybody, remember you're just a friend of Joey's. Like I like doing it, but I don't want to be put in the position where I'm supposed to lie.
Yeah.
So, and I'm definitely not going to send any of my hosts extra money.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's the absurd part of all this is like, go ahead and tip somebody. Yeah. On this third topic or fourth, I don't know what topic number we're on now. On this topic though, it's a blog post from late 2000 or actually July of 2018 on a blog called Drifting Clouds, and it's travels with I think it's Johnny, and it's about the Siberia to Tibet train. And it's actually a really fascinating read with a lot of cool pictures and kind of like some descriptions of the meals and what you can and can't get on the train. I'm fascinated by like this Trans-Siberian Railroad and some of those other trains. And so, Seth, I'm interested to know what you thought of this.
I regret not taking more long distance train journeys. At the same time, my experience with them thus far in my life has been Ukraine. We did a couple overnight trains. We did a business class and a first class, or first class and second class, whatever they were. One of which was a quad bunk where we shared it with Vladimir Putin and his wife. Not quite, but it was a guy who like immediately as the train rolled out the door, sitting on the side of the bed, took off his shirt, was just sitting there in a wife beater staring at us and looked a lot like Putin. I tried to offer him some of my vodka that I had picked up in the grocery store earlier that afternoon in Kiev. I think we were on our way down to Odessa, and he declined. It turns out you're not actually supposed to bring your own vodka on board for obvious reasons, just for an overnight train. I had a few swigs. I passed out. We woke up in Odessa. It was great. The other time I've done overnight trains was the Amtrak Auto Train, which runs from Sanford, Florida to somewhere in Virginia, just south of DC. And it's not good. It's a good way to get like someone to drive your car the 10 hours overnight, but it's not a good ride. You have to get the car there like 6 hours early or 3 hours early. Some large amount of time far too early because they have to like sequence them and put them on. They drive them onto cargo containers essentially that they drag on the train, and then it's the same thing at the other end to unload them. It's slow and it's a pain in the ass. But if you don't want to drive the whole way through, it's not bad. But then you end up sleeping in a Barca lounger, or not even, like it's a sort of 2-2 layout on an Amtrak train. It's the Northeast Regional car or whatever. Isn't there something similar in the Alps? Between France maybe and Switzerland there's a lot of night trains. There's not a lot of night trains. I mean a drive-on. Oh, that I don't know. Yeah. But yeah, overnight trains seem to be making a comeback in Europe. Yeah, there's Austrian, which I forget what it's called, OFB, FSB, something. No, FSB is the OBB. OBB, yeah. FSB is the Russian Secret Service. OBB has got new trains coming, new rolling stock joining the fleet in the next couple of years. So it's going to be nice again. I still remain unconvinced that there's a huge market for that versus people just taking the €29 LCC flight and then buying a hotel when they get there. Yeah. Of course, Austria also put in minimum fares as part of their bailout. So Lufthansa managed to negotiate that with the Austrian government. So I think there's now like a €39 minimum fare. Wow. Yeah, it's
still not a bad price.
No, but it's double what it was going to be. Right. And especially if you're Ryanair or who's the not Wizz, Easy. No, Lauda is part of Ryanair now. I think it's Wizz has a base in Vienna. Okay. And so when you try to make more of your money through ancillaries, like, do you just now start bundling a bag on some of those fares? I don't know. It's an interesting situation. God bless you. Sorry.
They'll bundle half a bag, but you have to buy the other half.
Well, that raises an interesting question for one of our live viewers, Pan Am Bag. Is she going to be included as the half that's allowed in or the half that is not? Because she has a human that comes with her. It's a very interesting challenge. And Tom notes that he had to give up his passport back in the day on overnight trains. I almost forgot, actually. In 1999, I took an overnight train from Nice to Rome. And that was interesting because on the train we ran into people we knew. Of course, only you. No, this is like summer after college. Like half of Europe is filled by 21-year-old idiot Americans. But one of my buddies ran into a girl who he grew up around the corner from. It was a fun and amusing. But Tom here notes that they took all the passports away at one point and then you got them back when you arrived. I remember on that train, they woke us up in the middle of the night. Like just someone came knocking on the cabin door, like, give us your passports. And they said it in either French or Italian. And it was 2 a.m. and I didn't understand any of it. So, well, and for some of the European stuff, I think, it's short enough. Train travel makes some sense depending on where you're going. But in this case, where this gentleman in this blog post was talking about he gets a sense of distance because he's flown Beijing to Irkutsk in like 2.5 hours, but then on a train it takes 54 hours, and so a week and a half to get back. Yeah, it's kind of one of those things where you kind of get an idea of scale when you're on a train. Well, right, part of flying for me that I love so much is the magic of you lock yourself in a metal tube, or now a composite tube, depending, and you end up like you fall asleep and you wake up and you literally can be on the other side of the world. Unless you're going to Singapore. I was at Newark to Singapore. I had to sleep twice, but Rollo and I took that flight together. We woke up and we're like, shit, we haven't even finished crossing the Pacific yet. Like I had a full 8 hours of sleep, and we hadn't we stayed up. We had the full meal. got a full 8 hours of sleep, and we were still like nowhere close.
You had another 8 hours to go.
We did 9. It was I think it was an 18-hour flight that day. But
wild.
It is, but like right. So there is that sense of magic of like you close yourself up in the tube, and then you end up opening the door, and you're in some other part of the world, right? If it's India, there's a olfactory challenge in that arrival as well. The first time I landed in India, I thought the engine was on fire.
Just
there was so many people in the general area around Delhi. It was November, and they were heating with dung patties, and there's a lot of smoke, a lot of burning. Yep. So, I literally looked over at my wife, like, I think they burnt the brakes or something. And she laughed at me because, not surprisingly, she knew what was going on and I didn't. But you're right, though. I think the sense of scale is a really interesting concept there. In
the chat, Tom Schindler mentions a series, a motorcycle journey series called Long Way Round. I'm going to check that out now, Tom, because that sounds fascinating. I've watched some people who have taken motorcycles, north to south in Vietnam or vice versa. And that's in and of itself a journey, but I can't imagine doing a round the world trip on a motorbike. I mean, pain for one, and, just the overall experience. Yeah, we actually have a mutual friend, Justin Lancy, or Veritrope, who has done a couple of guest episodes and whatnot, who was working with on a story about a guy who did a tuk-tuk from Bangkok to London. Oh, crap. Yeah. And like had what you would expect, wonderful people mostly along the way, but then like made it to somewhere in Europe and got robbed. And like it's super challenging and super interesting story. I'm not sure what the status is of it, so I don't want to give too much away. Read the book when it comes out. If it comes out, I don't know. But
there was that link I found a few weeks ago that I shared with you guys. There's an entire international highway network in all of Asia into Europe, which I didn't even know about. That's just fascinating.
And what is that? That highway network is just for trucking, or is it people actually?
People, I forget which car manufacturer. One did a promo from Tokyo all the way to London. I think it was Jaguar or Land Rover.
Wow.
All right. There's also like the Trans-American Highway. You can drive basically the entire ridge line from the tip of Ushuaia up to Alaska. And the only part where I think you have to, you can cross the Panama Canal now on a bridge, but there's a part where you can I think there's one part a little south of there where you have to take a ferry, but and then you end up on the U.S. interstate system and whatever when you get up this far north. But Darien Gap, thanks, Tom.
It's good to have
people on it's good to have our producer services available to us from the comments. I like this.
I'm trying to find it right now on YouTube. There's actually a motorcyclist, a Dutch motorcyclist that does a bunch of travels through the Far East. She was in Peru during the COVID outbreak, and she's got a fascinating channel just because she spends a good amount of time in each location. I'll find it and we can put it in the links for the show notes.
I was going to say, we'll put this in the show notes. And for those of you who have been paying attention for the last 300-ish episodes, rarely makes into the show notes.
It may happen.
Stephen remembers to IM me about it tonight before I actually post this tomorrow. Foz, I want to bring this to you. Kyle Potter asks, Vasu Raja from American Airlines says their break-even load factor right now is about 9%. Is that for real? And I know how much you love American Airlines, so
it's funny. Just yesterday I was thinking, wasn't that long ago that Doug Parker said they would never lose money again?
That's true.
And everyone, when he said it, everyone said it. No.
Are we saying COVID is his fault? He jinxed it?
We could.
Then it's not my fault anymore. I'm just you guys were trying to pin it on me earlier, I feel like.
You have to wonder if an airline can survive at 9%. How does that work?
So Vasu's comment, and goes back to an interview he did in the beginning of June with Holly Hedgeman from Plain Business Banter, which is a great read. You got to pay for it, but she is super sharp and super in touch with the industry and worth it in my opinion. A good subscription to have. She did an interview with him, and Vasu is head of revenue. Maybe he's sort of something like that. Senior, very senior, and very colorful. As she wrote in her notes, I got tired of coming up with substitutes for the word frigging. Assume that he never said that. He apparently, like, I read the interview, I read the thing. He dropped the F-bomb 20 or 30 times. It was definitely not PG-13. But his comment was basically, listen, right now, there was a brief window at late May, early June where the people were free, right? Because the U.S. government's paying for the PSP. The CARES Act is paying for the staff. Fuel was $25 a barrel, something like it was like $1.08 a gallon. And there's costs on the aircraft, but a lot of them were parked. And so they were using, if you look sort of the amortized costs and whatnot, it was super cheap. And so the actual cost of running these planes is at 9%. I mean, that's 16 people on a 737. Apparently that's his claim, is that, yeah, they if they sold those tickets right, because they basically their costs were so low, they could make money that way. Now, obviously the costs aren't staying that low. Fuel has come back up a reasonable amount. The people are still free right now. The planes, there's a lot of renegotiated leases going on. But yeah, it's an interesting situation.
Even with planes parked, you're paying for them, right?
Sure.
You're paying not only parking fees, but you're also paying the leases. Right?
I was surprised how cheap parking is, by the way.
Not surprised.
Depends on where, but I seem to recall Kansas City. Someone from the airport was tweeting that it's basically the same as the cost of the long-term parking lot.
You got to wonder what the hell they're doing in the long-term parking lot then.
So,
but that's the thing, right? The plane leases aren't cheap, and even while you're renegotiating them, it's a cost. It's a substantial cost, and AA is mostly financed from a fleet perspective.
Sort of, though, right? Is it like financed to themselves? There's AAL and AMR. Like there's two. It's like the holding company and then the operating company underneath it. They did a whole bunch of sale leasebacks recently. They had a bunch unencumbered that they were able to refinance that way. So they found a few $1 billion in them. So not all of them are.
But even the one.
Wish I had that problem finding $1 billion.
I've been looking in my couch. I haven't been able to find it.
It meant that you had a few $1 billion before, also, don't forget. And now you have a few billion less.
But even with the leasebacks, right? They were planes they were had financed, right? They're not buying planes outright in cash.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, some of the airlines are. I don't know if American was as much, but like Delta was for a while. Now they're not.
Well, they also haven't bought nearly as many planes over the last 5 years.
That's true. American had a much broader refresh program in action. But yeah, I don't. The 9% thing was an interesting number. I think that was a very narrow window situation. American also, though, that was their explanation for why they added so much capacity. They also, though, apparently claimed to have like somewhere between 40 and 50% of U.S. traffic on 4th of July weekend. And another 8% went to Allegiant. So, right, it certainly shifts the market share. The question is, does that matter longer term?
Well, right. I'm still a little dumbfounded by how much Southwest flying I see lately.
Yeah, there's a lot.
I mean, they have a lot of planes in the sky, and I wonder, is it cheaper for them to just keep the planes moving and potentially not? If 9%'s the number, are they filling them up that much?
I saw an interesting thing. Fly Data guy on Twitter is actually, I believe, a former Southwest employee who can't write about Southwest directly as much because of his non-compete or NDAs and stuff, but does a lot of good data analysis and had some interesting statistics on it. And one of the things he noted about the schedules right now is because Southwest isn't hub and spoke, their route network requires more flights to keep the planes positioned in the cruise position properly. Right? They don't have red eyes, so they can't reposition people overnight, and they don't have the ability to just like bring everything back to a hub easily. Right? Like takes four flights to get back to one of the like 6 focus cities or whatever you want to call them. So it is an interesting challenge. one of the things he said is that also like, the map looks more like spaghetti pie, but also when they decide to start canceling things, it'll be a full line gets canceled. Like if like this one segment is bad and the others are just okay, they might cancel the whole line through.
Yeah, and the reason I bring that up is because and we can talk about this a little bit more, but Portland opened up, PDX opened up their new Terminal E section, which is going to be Southwest dedicated. But as part of that, in December, Southwest is canceling a number of flights out of Portland, and it was
naturally because we've got a brand new gorgeous terminal.
Nailed it. So as they're canceling these flights, there has to be tie-on effects, right? If they're canceling Portland, Ontario, then whatever was continuing on out of Ontario is probably affected, because that plane doesn't turn around.
It depends on where they leave the plane.
Yeah.
They may they may just not bring that plane to Portland at all.
Yeah. So it's the new terminal looks beautiful. Southwest future at the airport is weird.
So they took a chapter out of United's book.
Yeah. They're going to up their Portland Las Vegas flying.
Oh,
United or Southwest?
Southwest.
Okay. Only on the 5s and 10s though. That's actually my favorite little thing about Southwest Airlines. Their entire schedule, they don't like all the other airlines. Like your flight departs at 10:22. Southwest is 5s and 10s. They don't use the other minutes in the hour.
They don't exist. Well, their computer system probably couldn't handle it.
Ouch. They just move to Amadeus.
Yeah, Steven's just being a jerk.
I mean, I'm sure there's some antiquated system which can't.
Well, I mean, didn't they come from a homegrown system before moving to Amadeus? That's probably why, is no one was like, let's move to Amadeus.
It couldn't handle international services, right? Like it couldn't handle red eyes. One of the reasons they never ran red eyes is because the system couldn't handle +1 arrivals.
Oh boy. Software is hard.
Computers, man, I tell you what.
I want to talk a little bit about Delta and their losses. Right, they announced quite a large amount of losses.
Just a few $1 billion, Steven. I know what you're complaining about.
It's the largest loss they've had since when? It's been
ever.
Yeah, I think
maybe I don't know the 90s.
Yeah, the 90s. They had some large quarterly loss that was not in the billions, but in the hundreds of millions. But I mean, this is kind of, it gives us a different perspective on what's happening to the airline industry and what we're going to hear from United and what we're going to hear from the other majors around the world. When losses are in the billions, can this continue, and how long can it continue? Because Bastian, the CEO, says he doesn't see this getting better for another 2 years.
Which ironically is when VS's profit plan comes into play.
Virgin Atlantic's profit plan. Yeah.
When they expect their restructuring to start to deliver profits. So, and this sort of plays into a question Tom threw up in the chat here about who's buying seats right now. And right now, it's all leisure travel.
Yeah.
And Bastian said that on the call that there are no business travelers. He talked about how they're trying to get business travelers back and doing like hand-holding tours through terminals to show corporate travel managers like, look, we wipe everything down every day. Look, we give you a mask. It sort of is working, but not really. So there are no business travelers. Tom points out that families are buying business class now, the big seats up front, because it's more spacious. You're further away from people you don't know. Sort of guarantees that blocked seat, if you will. I mean, hell, my wife, Lena and I used to always do that when we fly Spirit. We'll just buy the big front seats if they're available because it's cheaper. By the time you're going to buy assigned seats anyways with legroom, it's cheaper to do that and just block the middle seat effectively.
But the problem that Bastian has with like walking corporate clients around the airport and showing them how good of a job they're doing is that the corporate travel
get somewhere.
Corporate travelers aren't going to offices. Like you're not like we're
There's nowhere to go when you land. No one wants you in their office. That office is closed.
Exactly.
You can't do a sales call anymore. No, it's all sorts of bad. There it is again. I agree. I think we are facing. I think 2 years is optimistic for a return to certain current travel levels or 2019 travel levels. But there's another analyst in the industry that says they're going to be at 85% by the end of this year, domestic U.S., which I think is absolutely ridiculous.
Not going to happen.
I agree. They don't take my comments though anymore. So here we are. The Delta thing though, the billions of dollars, right? We're going to see American have billions of dollars in losses. United's going to have billions of dollars of losses. Alaska and JetBlue aren't going to have billions, but it's going to be hundreds of millions. There are huge numbers at play. Part of Delta's losses, though, like they had to write off $2.1 billion in foreign investments, which we talked about last week, with Aeromexico and LATAM and Virgin Atlantic. Yeah, right. There's a lot of money being burned right now, and the real challenge in a lot of ways is to cover that. They all took out big loans, and the interest on that they're going to have to start to pay soon, and that means that they're operating. The way the cash flow works, they need to generate even more revenue than they were before because now their interest expenses are much higher. So, Delta was bragging that they got 5.5% as a blended rate, and this comes after, years ago, they not that long ago, they were talking about we're investment grade, we can get money at 2%, it's no big deal.
Yeah, what is this? Do we see a U.S. carrier folding in the near future?
Folding, no. Chapter 11, probably not. I think the U.S. carriers are sufficiently liquid I think all of them have the right liquidity for at least 12 months at this point, 9 to 12 months. So nothing's going to happen soon. Even
with the buyouts and the things that are happening with their employees and layoffs and stuff.
I think that it's just going to be a very much contracted industry when they come out and return to profitability. We'll see hubs close down, and we'll see a drastically smaller route network across the board.
Yeah.
Is anyone going to go bankrupt and shut down? No. But it also sort of depends on how long this lasts. And Foz, sort of to your point about Virgin Atlantic trying to be profitable and some of those other things, all the U.S. carriers are still burning cash right now, but they all routinely release numbers. Delta right now is $27 million a day. And so, right, that's $1 billion a month almost.
Yeah. Right.
You can do that math real quick, right? I think Allegiant thinks they're going to be under $1 million a day, but that's still like $25 to $30 million a month. But they keep cutting and they're trimming and they're this and they're that. And, can you trim to profitability? Historically, no, but also unprecedented times, blah, blah, blah. There are some things you can cut that might bring the schedule back down to a manageable level. And if you get rid of enough people, you sort of can start to find those numbers. And now a lot of the airlines are talking about sort of end of the year, end of Q1 of next year, not being burning cash anymore. You start to get into accounting games of, does that mean profitable, or does that mean sort of, does that take into account interest and all those other things? But there is sort of a light on the horizon, a light at the end of the tunnel. It might be an oncoming train. It's hard to tell.
I don't think it looks good for at least another year for the airline, at least.
I was just going to say, I wonder if we're going to see more of pre-deregulation route types. Like the Southwest route network where you do 5 stops across the country.
You say flag stops and milk runs?
Yeah.
Alaska just combined Atlanta and Charleston. Yeah, they have a tag flight now.
They did a few months ago, but I wonder.
They had a bunch. A lot of the airlines had a bunch because of CARES Act stuff, but Alaska just added a new one.
Yeah, we could totally see that in the next year. Consolidation via tag flights or hops.
My thing on that is I expect that it will be less tag flights and more just service dropped. You'll see airlines just drop cities.
Yeah, I think it'll come down to demand, right? If we really are expecting leisure travel for the foreseeable future, tag flights aren't a problem, right? Leisure travelers don't need the nonstop premium. They'd like a nonstop, but they won't pay a premium as often as a business traveler.
So you're saying if you get a $29 flight to New York, you don't care that you stop 4 times?
Actually, I would be all for it.
You want the lines?
Yeah.
Someone was talking about JetBlue moved to LAX and mentioned that they're actually increasing their LA Newark to 5x. They've scheduled now 5x weekly in October. which up from 3, and I was like, really? And I went and looked it up, and there's for most days or a bunch of days in October, you get a $29 Spirit fare right now, LA to Newark, with 6 hours and 45 minutes stuck in Houston.
Yeah, no thank you.
But it's October, so at least it's not a festering pit; it's just a pit.
I think that we could soon see Beach 1900s doing Portland, Pendleton to Billings. Just picking up passengers along the way, dropping people off. Spokane, yeah, just all kinds of things. Coeur d'Alene.
Yeah, I said most of the do all those actually have service now regularly though?
You can't do Portland. You can do Portland, Spokane. You can't do Portland, Coeur d'Alene. You have to go up to Seattle. Yeah.
Can be cool.
Or just fly to Spokane and drive the hour across.
You could do that too.
That's how I did it.
But that's
with Foz, actually. Foz, you remember that? We did that as a mileage run.
Yes, to Spokane.
And I think Steve, who's in the chat right now, he and I did Spokane, but we just turned around. We spent the night in Spokane and turned back around.
Yeah,
it was on that.
Foz and I did that, and then I went back after he left. I slept at the terminal in O'Hare. It was Minneapolis to Spokane on Minneapolis Spokane on United, and Chicago to Spokane A-Fare, so it was first class on US Airways on the 734 via Phoenix. No, I can't believe I remember that.
732, not a 4.
Was it 2 on US Air?
Yes, because it was the America West plane.
Yeah, there's definitely no. I was in row 1 and was like playing footsies with the flight attendant. I remember that. Yeah,
I did that one, but that was when we were crediting the BMI.
Yeah, 625%. Yeah, it was glorious.
Good old days.
But no, we had the giant cinnamon roll that morning. Stayed in the courtyard. I can't believe I remember all these things.
I remember
right next to the Perkins.
I remember the cinnamon roll.
Yeah, right. It was. It was like one of those full foam tray clamshell things. Like it filled the entire thing. It was kind of crazy.
Last topic before we talk about episode 300 a little bit and just the show in general. Emirates has brought the A380 back to Heathrow, Paris, and there's some others that are coming. I think Amsterdam's on the list, and they announced that today, right?
They operated today, yeah.
They actually flew London, Heathrow, and Paris today, which is, it's big news for them because it's a big jet being brought out when
and they're at this point the only major 380 operator.
Yeah.
Right?
Everybody else is retiring them.
The question is, will anyone fly the 380 other than Emirates in a year from now?
China Southern, I think, is still sort of flying theirs, but mostly on quote unquote charter flights to LA to bring Chinese students home. So
ANA can't fly to get tourists to Japan, to Honolulu right now.
Yeah,
right, because we closed the borders. There's a lot of places where Air France retired theirs. British Airways, who knows? Right, it's not like Heathrow slots are quite so hard to go. Well, that's a challenge though, right? Like it depends on really what the slot situation becomes. And then do they have to fill them? And can they?
Where would they fly it though, right? They've got 772s, 773s, 350 1000s, 789s. They have a ton of large planes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
787s.
787s, and still they have the 744s.
Not for long. Maybe.
Doesn't so Lufthansa hasn't said they're going to get rid of all of them, so that we could potentially see them come back.
Yeah,
but they're moving to Munich, right?
Right.
Yeah.
I don't think that's a bad thing. Actually, I was going to say you don't get the first class lounge or the first class terminal there, but Lufthansa on Monday is going to reopen the first class lounge in Schengen A Pier at Frankfurt. So no limo transfers, but and limited food and beverage. So I don't know, maybe the schnitzel will be there, maybe not. It's hard to tell.
But what about the rubber duckies?
I don't know. I was going to say it's also unclear what the water bar will look like, or the whiskey bars. But the bottled water selection always was the part that amused me the most of that.
Yes, multiple types, sparkling or not.
Yeah. Oh no, like 40 different types from countries around the world to get your flavor of water that you preferred. Which, I laughed at until we were in Ukraine and we bought bottled water in the grocery store, and I thought it was like all the same, and there were some we couldn't drink. Like the flavor profiles with the minerals and stuff in them were very different. Joel, I agree with you. If you can get a rubber ducky from the Lufthansa first class terminal wearing a mask, worth paying for.
Yes, we would pay for that for sure. So I just want to ask you guys, like, is there an episode or a time on the show that you are really proud of or really enjoyed? Like that's like really memorable to you, since we've done this now for 300 episodes. I've talked to you guys 300 times.
Ish,
give or take.
I don't know why, but I remember the dragon. The sheriff.
When we were in Krakow.
Yep. Was that Krakow?
Krakow is the city of
Krakow.
dragons. Yeah, Krakow.
I don't remember the
about
dragon. I don't remember the dragons.
I remember that, and then I remember having to break out of the courtyard in Vienna, in Salzburg.
Salzburg, yes, fighting our way out of the bar in Salzburg. I remember that. I say a lot of the memories are tied to those January trips. It turns out.
I think those are some of my favorite episodes. I mean, doing it like this is fine. Like doing the show live via video, I can see you guys, your faces and stuff. It's great. But when we do the shows together, usually with friends in the room who are laughing at our shenanigans, it's even more fun. I don't think Quadraline will ever leave my mind, Ian. Ever.
Honestly, that is, in a lot of ways, that's one of my favorites, because that was, bizarrely, we had chosen that day to rebrand the show.
Yeah.
We were points hoarders, and I believe it was episode 52 or 62, and we decided, no, we're going to do dots, lines, and destinations. Points hoarding was stupid. It was a funny joke, and we were switching it up. And we started recording, and that trip, I mean, putting aside the getting stuck in Quadraline part, that trip had some amazing highlights. The flight attendants who, like, about an hour into it, decided that, like, we actually really meant it. We wanted to have fun. And so then all of a sudden they wanted to have fun too. Right? The head flight attendant called ahead, like, had the pilot call ahead to the station in Majuro using the sat phone, and had the station manager go buy us sandwiches from a shop down the street because they were so good. When we got off the plane in Majuro, I got to the bottom of the stairs, and the station manager was holding a plastic bag and said, "You must be Seth. These are for you." And I had to give him $50 in cash, and we had 10 grilled tuna sandwiches that I then distributed to all of us on the plane, and when we got back on board. Like, that's just not something that happens.
No.
Yeah.
That was an amazing experience.
It also
happened to be the day, like, we got stuck, and then MH380 or 370, right?
370, yeah.
MH370 went down that same day. So, like, there's a whole lot going on in that episode.
And we were
also around that day. And we were recording it, like, in segments.
And we were recording it in the terminal. I think we all, like, got, like, a rum and Coke or something at Majuro. Yeah. Like, we were sitting in the terminal drinking, using the restroom really quick, because before we got back on the plane, and people were just, like, staring at us, like, who are these psychos talking into microphones?
Yeah.
And, like, why are they here? How their day was going to end.
Yeah.
In Quadraline.
I would say, and that part, like, at that point, everything was still cool.
Yeah.
It was the flight out of Majuro where shit went bad.
Yeah. And yes, Joel, the sandwiches were delicious.
They were really good.
It was really like, great. Yeah.
It's just a grilled tuna sandwich, but it was fresh, you could tell, and I don't know. It was really nice.
I think the live episodes are some of the most fun. We've even done some when I was working in New York, and Seth, you were living there. We would, you would either show up to the hotel, or we go to your apartment, or even record sometimes at a restaurant on the street.
Yeah. Let's not forget about Staten Island.
Oh, that
we did have to go to Staten Island that one time. That's Steven's fault.
Yeah,
that was my fault. I was working in Staten Island. Rolo decided he was going to come to Staten Island. You guys agreed to come to Staten Island.
I don't know why.
I got to tell you, that was the first time in like 25 or 30 years I'd taken the Staten Island ferry.
Really?
Why the hell would I have taken the ferry?
I don't know.
Why would I have gone to Staten Island? Cheap way to see the Statue of Liberty up close. But yeah, no, I remember that. Yeah, that was it.
Yeah, we recorded at the Hampton Inn on Staten Island, under the flight path of Newark, and it was good times.
It was times.
Yeah, it wasn't.
Yes.
I wouldn't call it good. and that pizza was awful.
It was pretty bad. And you guys left it with me. You're like, you guys want leftovers, Steven? I'm not gonna find food, in Staten Island.
Well, you were in Staten Island.
I think
What was your favorite?
I think for all the crap I give Kwajalein, I think that was definitely one of like the highlights as far as episodes go. I think we got it was a great story. I think we've done some really good shows. Around the world. I think Hamburg, we've had some good shows in Hamburg.
Yeah.
We had trying to think of other ones. I thought the show with Jason in Hanoi was great as we tried really, really terrible beers.
They were so bad.
The worst beer I've ever had. But that's the funny part is we bought those like on the street, and then we went to some restaurants that had beer and they were great. It was the most random thing.
It was good microbrews in Hanoi.
Yes.
We took taxis out to find these random places, but like out in a random neighborhood. You remember that? Like way north of town, halfway back to the airport. It was delicious though. And
then we go back and we're like, we'll buy some beers from, whatever the local.
It was the 7-Eleven on the corner. Or the Circle K. It was one of the two.
And they were terrible. Absolutely
we couldn't finish them.
No, we threw them out. I felt really bad.
I
will say this about that episode too. That episode, was one of my times, Hanoi, you convinced me, Seth, you were like, hey, you should just stay close so that we can go see things together. And I stayed at the same hotel as you. And it was a cheap hotel that was really decent. And it's taught me that in like Southeast Asia, I should really look for maybe the off-brand hotels because they might be in a better spot. Yeah. I mean, after talking to Faz going to Da Nang, wasn't it, Faz? You said the Hyatt there was like way out in the middle of nowhere and don't stay there.
Yeah.
It's like 10 miles up the beach or something, right?
Yeah. So it's like I want to stay where things are happening and where people are and where to experience things.
Which is why I stay in Airbnbs all the time.
Yeah, I think
bringing it full circle.
I think the other episode too was Beijing. That was another fun one. Seth, you and I went to Beijing. Steve, and
before his happy ending, right?
Yeah. I mean, before his happy ending massage.
Solicited, not consumed.
He had a fun experience there, and you and I kind of just went out and tasted some noodles. And
did we record it like in that soup shop that morning?
I think so. Yeah, we just kind of talked there that morning.
What's funny about this one is the trip was actually Hong Kong.
Yeah. Right.
We went to Hong Kong as we tend to sort of do from time to time in October. And you guys planned to go. I found a 33,000 sky miles round trip to Beijing and back, and then took the train down from Beijing to Hong Kong, did an overnight train, and then the new first class train through the tunnel across to Hong Kong West. We all flew back via Beijing on like Cathay Business Awards or something like that. But that restaurant we went to, I had visited my first time in Beijing, and it was 10-minute walk from
the square,
Tiananmen Square, right? And it was just like it's just dumplings. But I stayed at the hotel like around the corner from it my first time, and the hotel had a breakfast that was like $30, which was stupid. And I walked across the street and I found this place and I looked in and I walked in and they're like, oh shit, gringo. And I looked around, and I just pointed. I was like, whatever that guy's eating, I want one of those. And it was just a bowl with some veggie dumplings in it, or pork dumplings. And like, that's essentially what we had then years later when you and I went back. But I had it like, I think, and if I remember correctly, I went out that morning before you had it, and then you texted me like, "You up?" I'm like, "Yeah, come on out." And I walked back into the same loop a second time and had a second round of breakfast.
It was a great way to just kind of see the side streets of Beijing that I don't think you don't usually see. Amir's asking, do you still have a Cathay Mistake Fare? I still have a Cathay Mistake Fare, Amir.
Yeah, I'm out. Yeah.
And then Hendrik is saying, I guess you don't want to mention Singapore. I don't remember what was
that hotel. That hotel
your picked? Yellow submarine.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. I forgot about that in Little India. Yeah. Oh man, what was that? It
was the Starwood something.
Yeah. It was one of the Starwood boutique hotels, but it's not anymore.
Faz's room was probably the most unique room I have ever seen.
There's a similar one of a purple octopus that Lene and I stayed in Panama City, Panama. That actually was a great hotel. Except it was all cast concrete and had a bar on the roof, so the sound just echoed up and down the open corridor there. Yep. Was not good, but it was a great. I mean, if you were up in the bar drinking, it was nice. But
my room was great, Fuzz. I mean,
yes.
We used the picture of the Yellow Submarine as the header of that episode.
Yeah, and
his room didn't even have windows to the outside. It had windows to the elevator shaft.
Yeah, it was great.
So did our room. So did our rooms at the one we were talking about in Hanoi.
Yep, that's true.
Sometimes, that trip with me and Jason and you, like sometimes we got the one with the balcony, and sometimes we got the interior view, and it was like $20 or $30 more for the exterior view in that place. I'm like, okay, I'll take the elevator shaft. As long as there's something resembling when I've had rooms in Singapore, they're like no windows at all.
Yeah. And
the first day when you're jet lagged, that can be useful. After that, it's really creepy to me.
It was the Wanderlust.
The Wanderlust. Yeah, there you go. And Foz, we stayed at that hotel and we're like, oh, this is because I stayed there because I'm cheap. And Foz wanted to stay. I don't remember where you wanted to stay, the Sheraton. And I didn't want to stay there because it's out of the way. And I still stand by that. The Sheraton.
You guys stayed at the Sheraton on our first trip there.
Yeah, and it's out of the way.
It is. Because it's not close enough to the MRT.
There's an MRT next door to it now.
Is there a new station? But it's back forever ago when we went, there was not.
Yeah.
When I went years ago, I remember staying at the Sheraton, and it was literally like 100 yards from the MRT station.
Oh, bullshit, Foz. I'm calling bullshit.
So that was when Steven. That was you, me, Reb, and Steve, right?
Yeah, and we go to Singapore. That MRT station is not close, and it is. And when it's on a hot day, you and I walked that.
On a cool day in Singapore, it's hot. Come on.
Yeah, you and I walked that, and it was like freaking 180 degrees outside. I'm melting to go to Starbucks to get a cup. Do you remember that?
I do. Well, I remember that. It wasn't Starbucks, but I do remember that. I'm going to map this out. Oh, that's because we went to the mall. The hotel was the schlep is from the hotel to the mall.
Oh, okay. All right. I stand corrected.
I stayed in an Airbnb in my last time in Singapore, right? Actually near Little India. But it was one of the old, like, I don't know what they call them. Like there's like sort of duplex houses that like line the back streets, and like it used to be like the ground floor was a shop and the upstairs is where the people lived.
Yeah. Yep.
And now there are a lot of them who converted just to all residential, and some of them are still stores. But it was, one of the legal Airbnbs in Singapore. There's a lot of illegal ones where they're truly subsidized housing for the residents, which I've also stayed in. But
question for you, Seth: did you go back to the biryani shop on your last trip?
The Indian place. We walked past it with the lime juice. We walked past it; they weren't open yet when we went.
Foz and I went. It was really disappointing.
Was it?
Yeah, it was. I think they sold it or something. It wasn't the same owners, and they didn't do the fresh lime juice anymore. But once Foz found a place where he could get lime juice, he was like, "This is the most refreshing thing I've ever had."
It is. He's not wrong about that. No, fresh lime juice is delicious.
Yeah, it's great. Listen,
I'll go back to Singapore and eat anytime. When Lynette and I were there last October, November, we went out the skewers thing that we had done, the Satay Street at night, and like sat out there and did, just ate and ate. It was great. I think we had in the 36 hours we were there, we had like 6 meals. Yeah. Like
I think and by like
a good number.
What we've talked about before, Singapore is a great layover for, acclimating your body to Asia and getting some good food and then move on. That's kind of my step.
It's a food city, or unless you want to shop. That would be the other thing, but I don't.
I will say there were a couple cool museums that we ended up seeing, mostly because it was like, oh, there's somewhere with air conditioning as we're walking from here to there. And so there was some interesting stuff that we discovered on our last trip. It's obviously everybody else knows about it, and we just learned about it. But eating and then moving on.
Well, and you said, moving from air conditioning to air conditioning. We tried that in Hanoi. We went to some museums. No air conditioning.
The Museum of Women had air conditioning in some of the rooms, but not in the stairwells.
Not in the stairwells. So you had to like stand at certain exhibits.
Yeah.
And then people were like,
and then like, okay, I've seen all this and read the description 6 times. I guess I got to go downstairs now, hustle down, and then get back into the air conditioning the next level.
Yep.
And that's a museum worth visiting, though. It's really cool.
It is. So to Amir's question, I still have a Cathay ticket. I've rebooked that ticket now 3 times. I'm now booked for September. I think the first 2 weeks in September sometime to go back. I doubt that's going to happen. just based on where the United States is. And I mean, Vietnam's letting Americans in. They're not we're not banned, but I do think there might be a quarantine in place. And if there's a quarantine in place, I can't stay there for 2 weeks and then come home. So we'll see what happens. And worst case scenario, they refund the ticket. So
you could just go for 14 days and then stay.
And never come back.
Yeah.
It's a convenient hop down to New Zealand from there. Seth is like, that's a good idea.
I'm all about finding alternatives at this point.
Yeah. Anything else you guys want to chat about?
Not on my end.
My rum glass is empty.
Yeah, my coffee cup. I have the whole carafe. I didn't even show this, but I have the whole carafe here. So I'm kind of jittery.
It's a good thing to do at 6 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
You planning on sleeping tonight, Stephen?
No, I don't sleep.
Sweet.
So yeah, I think this is fun. I want to know what our listeners think. I think we could do this live show more often.
Okay.
What do you think?
Sure.
Yeah.
The editing is a lot harder.
Is it?
All that editing I typically do on every show. Yeah.
I think the YouTube thing is fun. I think doing it like a radio show is a lot of fun. And we'll see what we can do for our listeners. We'll see kind of how this works timing wise, since Seth and Foz are on the East Coast and I'm on the West Coast, makes it a little tougher, but I think we can make it work.
But we're only 3 hours apart these days.
Yeah. We
don't have like 12 hours or anything like that.
That's true.
None of us are traveling, so we actually are relatively easy to schedule.
It's true. Yeah. Yeah. So I think to our listeners, thanks for listening. Thanks for putting up with us for 300 episodes. And, we love to have you guys and girls watch us, ladies and gentlemen, watch us on YouTube. And I think having
you're
you
getting creepy here, Stephen. Be careful.
Sorry. So I think what it would be great. Maybe we can have some guests and stuff. So thanks for listening. Happy travels. Bye-bye.
Take care.
Where's the end button?
He doesn't even say goodbye.
I gotta find the end button.
I didn't even hit that. I didn't even push Patreon.
Well, we're still broadcasting, so it's okay.
Become a Patreon member.